Let's see. Who is calling today from the 916 area code? 916, you're on the air.
Hey, this is John calling from the San Francisco Bay Area.
Hey, John.
Hey, so I got a couple of questions, and it's in the realm of taxes.
Sure.
Recently with the Trump great tax reform, me and my wife, we really got hit hard here in California because the SALT deduction went away. A lot of that had to do with our employer not withholding enough. And I was wondering, do you believe there'd be any recourse? Because employers, I'm hearing from a lot of my colleagues and friends that they've all got hit with $5,000, $10,000 tax bills, and these are just kind of average and middle class people. Is there
So
any
you're
recourse
saying
that your
that, let me
employer
see if
made
I
this?
understand, John, though. I want to make sure. So I'll explain the SALT limit in a second to people, but you're saying people who just work, all of their income is W-2 income. They work for an employer and
Yes.
that it's all W-2 income, and they are
Mm.
having to cut a check for 10 grand when they file their taxes only on the basis of how their withholdings changed as a result of or didn't change arguably because of the Trump tax plan.
That's correct. So if you look, you fast forward a couple years ago, no Trump, no tax reform. People are getting $1,000 back, twelve
Yep.
hundred back. They're putting ones or twos on their W-2, I think it is.
Yep.
Um, Fast forward to today, I had to go to a CPA and really pull receipts out and really dig and really try and find a way to get above that 24,000 because all of a sudden me and my wife had a $5,000 tax burden out of nowhere.
So
And I was just
that
wondering,
sounds like, I mean, so you're talking about a $6,000 swing in
yes.
terms of getting 1,000 back versus paying 5,000. And how much did the deduction, the withholdings during the year change relative to that 6,000? Did you have 2,000 less
Yes.
withheld or 4,000 less withheld?
It was, I don't have the exact numbers between year one and year two, like what changed, but I know it had to have been pretty drastic. Like they did not withhold 5,000 additional dollars. So my paycheck went up a little bit and I thought like, that's great. Maybe that's what the tax reform was supposed to do, was make more in my paycheck.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden I have this bill. So I was wondering,
Listen, the numbers aren't
it's
adding
very
up to
clear.
me. I don't. So listen, I don't think you
Okay.
have any recourse. It's sort of
Okay.
in some way it is your responsibility to tell your employer how much
Hmm.
they just withhold what you tell them. You could maybe argue as a
Okay.
courtesy they should have said, listen, everybody should review their withholdings or something like that. I don't think you have recourse. The numbers aren't really making sense to me when you mention them. I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there's something else that explains the drastic change. What really matters
Mhm.
in the end is your actual effective tax rate, and we won't know that until you finish filing, or maybe you already. Do you know what your actual change in tax rate was?
It was favorable, but the
So you
challenge I
paid
had
less
with the
in
whole,
taxes, but you just ended up
I
having to
did.
cut a check at the end of the year.
Yes, I did.
So it's
And
not
that's
what
the
you're saying
problem.
isn't possible, John. Unfortunately, I don't know how what you're saying is possible because if you're saying that you ended up having to cut a check for 5 grand, but you did not have an additional 5,000 withheld, but also your effective tax rate went down. I don't know how all of those things can be true.
Well, here's how it's true. Your monthly payment, because what the tax reform did was say, let's try and fix the problem with deduction so we get the refunds closer to zero, was what Trump's theory was in my mind.
Okay.
And so he had more going to my paycheck. So say my paycheck went up 300, 400, $500 a month, whatever it ended up being. Effectively, they weren't withholding it enough, and they were playing a shell game. And my money was going to my paycheck. It looks like things are going good. Wow, the Republicans are doing great things for me. My paycheck went up with them. But ultimately, they just moved the money around because they weren't withholding a lot. And so I
No, I
have
get
to
that, but
pay a
what's
check
not
for.
making sense, John, is, and we don't have to go through your full tax return. What's not, I understand the
That's fine.
concept of moving the money around, so you get an extra 300, but then you owe, that 300 times 12 months would be like 3,600. But you're simultaneously saying that the amount you owe is more than the withholdings increase, but that your tax rate actually went down, and that just doesn't add up. But I'm not sure, John. I will continue to look into it, and I appreciate the phone call. There's probably some piece of information there that's missing.